Welcome to Intertek's Natural Disasters Hurricane Series. I'm Shawn Donovan. I'm excited to bring you Intertek's new series of discussions on natural disasters related to testing, certifications, codes, and much more. Our discussion will be around 15 to 20 minutes, asking the most relevant questions for building product manufacturers and other industry professionals. Today, I'm excited to be talking with Jose Colon, the Director of U.S. Sales for the Building and Products Division of Intertek. Jose, I appreciate your time today. You and I have gone back quite a ways, but for those out there who don't know who you are and perhaps not too familiar with Intertek, can you give a little perspective of your background, your current role, and a little bit about the company?
Sure, Shawn. Great to do this with you. Yeah, you're one of the first few clients that I met in the industry when I started way back in 1996. So
I remember.
I am a Red Raider from Texas Tech, bachelor in civil engineering. Started with Hurricane Test Lab in 1996, and through acquisitions, I've been lucky enough to be in this industry for 27 plus years now. Hurricane Test Lab, then architectural testing, and now Intertek. And I've gone from being out in the lab with just 5 of us running the lab to opening up labs in Atlanta. I ran the Atlanta lab until 2015, and then 2015, that was 2 years after Intertek acquired us, and I got tired of the operational side, and I'm more of a people person, so I went over to business development and sales. And now, for the past year, I've been the director of sales for the U.S. for our building and construction products division. So all our test labs, certification services, and building sciences.
Awesome. Well,
So
you've come a long ways in a long time. So,
yeah.
yes.
And just a little more on Intertek real quick.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about our ATIC services, assurance, testing, inspection, and certification. You know, Intertek is a global company based in London. We're publicly traded, over 100 countries, over 1,000 offices, 44,000 people worldwide. We're in many different industries, you know, from testing the fuel that goes into Air Force One to testing the durability of clothing, jerseys for the NBA and NHL and so forth. So we're a pretty big company.
Wow. Yeah, very impressive. Well, great. I think that's a great backdrop to all this. And so let's get into this. Again, this is, kind of new for us, designed to be kind of just a Q&A session. These are a lot of topics that we feel that building product manufacturers have interest in. So let's just go through some of these questions and see what you can share with us here. So the first question we have is, hurricanes certainly have been a hot topic lately, especially with the recent devastation caused by Hurricane Ian last year. We've come a long ways. We talked about from the early to mid 90s with Hurricane Andrew, which really changed everything in this marketplace anyway, in the construction and building codes in the hurricane markets. Can you kind of set the stage here and provide some perspective on kind of where we've come over those past, I guess we're talking almost 30 years now?
Yeah, well, one of the key things that I always bring up is just that, look, the building code and the test standards work, right? We've had lots of hurricanes over the years. If you look back at Andrew, one of the biggest things was things weren't installed properly, right? You know, there were windows installed with one fastener when it needed like 10 fasteners all the way around. So the codes and the standards, and like Miami-Dade and their building inspectors and things, and then testing at test labs, making people test and getting approvals and stuff. I keep on saying that the system works, right? Not a lot has changed in the test methods and standards. There's some test methods now that have a higher missile speed and things like that for essential facilities, but the basic core for hurricane resistance testing hasn't changed a lot. There are a lot of things that have come up lately, like flooding and things like that, but for hurricane resistance, not a lot has changed.
Yeah, well, it is amazing. If I think back, I can remember we got excited about passing a 4x6 fixed window with laminated glass PVB, and that was a big deal. And so from that perspective, I think we've come a long ways for products that have been designed to meet these standards.
Yeah, and it was simple back in the day. It was just people wanting to test one type of window, one type of glass, get an approval. Nowadays, people want the world, for
Yeah.
approval. So
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about this, where the basic standards with flying debris and sustained winds, and you touched on a little bit with flooding. Are there some other areas today that product manufacturers are more concerned about or pay more attention to than perhaps they have in the past when it comes to getting products approved for these hurricane markets?
the more and more what you hear is all about energy and sustainability, right? So these systems that are being used are more energy efficient and things like that. But when it comes to what happens when a storm is coming through town, one of the biggest things that we've seen lately is flooding. When you're near the water, along the beach, or you're near a river or something like that, there's more and more flooding that we see across the nation, across the world, and there are standards out there for flooding. But there's things that are hopefully being worked on to make those standards, requirement to be used in the future.
And I know this isn't discussion on the insurance industry, because that could be a whole topic to itself, but certainly beyond the safety side of things, insurance, I would think, plays a big role with all of this.
Well, yeah, insurance does. They were a big factor also for the expansion of the codes back in the 90s. They had to pay a lot of money, and they want to make sure, they want to mitigate risks. They want to make sure things are going to be resistant to hurricanes, and it's also going to be built properly, and the buildings are going to last, right? So insurance companies are deeply involved. I think one thing that people need to remember, I've never owned a house in a hurricane prone area, but I know you got to have certain insurance before the storm gets there. So if anything, you want to make sure and have everything ready way before, like, when hurricane season is coming. So
Right. Right. What do you see with some of the biggest challenges for product manufacturers that are trying to, enter or sell in this market today?
oh, well, I think it's all about money. It's time and money. You know, we have a lot of manufacturers from overseas, from Europe, that are coming into this market, and they just give you a call, and they say, Jose, we need windows to get tested for hurricanes, and I'm like, okay. All right. Well, that means a lot of things. They
Right.
just think it's very simple, that you're just going to have to test one thing and everything is approved and things like that. No, it just depends on what you're trying to sell, what you want to sell. And sometimes people want to do everything at one time. I always tell them to start off with what you think you're going to sell the most of, 80% the most of, right? Because it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to take time. But if you do it properly, if you follow the process, and you get companies like us, Intertek, help you through this process, you're going to save time, you're going to save money, and then you're going to make money in the future selling your product, which is their goal, right? They're always afraid of when you give them that number, and I tell them, don't be afraid, because it's going to cost you, but you're going to make money if you have a good product. So
So, it's kind of interesting. You mentioned companies outside the US, because certainly, a a lot of our domestic companies get involved in this marketplace, but you do see a lot of foreign companies come into the marketplace with high end products and such. Do you guys, do they come to you looking for consultation with this? Say, what do we do? I mean, is that commonplace for you to talk to folks like that?
100%. Yeah, they either they come in through our inquiry center, or they see that we're a Miami-Dade approved lab or a Florida Building Code approved lab, or they just remember that some of us, like myself and Vanu Abraham, who I work for, we used to work for Hurricane Test Lab. They remember the name Hurricane or Hurricane Test Lab, and they come back to you. And yeah, there's back in the 90s and early 2000s, there were maybe 5, 10 a year that would come into overseas to get in the market. Now it's much more than that. We're talking 20, 30, 40, 50 companies a year that are trying to come in from overseas to sell in the hurricane market. And it's always, they find out about a market, they want to come in, and they have that one big project, that one big house in Palm Beach that they're going to make tons of money on,
Right.
and that's what gets them into the market, right? So, and then you have other bigger companies that just want to bring in their whole product line to sell in North America. So you have both ends of the spectrum there.
So along those lines, both with domestic companies and foreign companies coming into the marketplace, is there a typical plan or path that you would recommend companies when you are talking to them as far as kind of what the process should be and what they should expect?
Yeah, look, I always tell people, we need to know your wish list, right? It's like Christmas, right? You want to bring in your product and sell it into the US, and there's standards that you need to meet to do that. And Intertek, our division of building and construction products, we can guide you through that process. We can find out what your wish list is, what type of window, what sizes you want to be able to sell, what components, what all the different glass types, different hardware, different installation types, different configurations that you want to test. And we will create a test plan for you that will get you the most for your approval with the least amount of testing. Right there, we're trying to save you money because we can combine different units to be tested at one time instead of testing 3 of everything. So you want to make sure and get a proper test plan created, and that test plan could be turned in if you want to go get a Miami-Dade approval. They are the only authority having jurisdiction that approves test plans. People still do that. They are the gold standard. But with our experience for a basic system, we don't have to turn it into Miami-Dade. But if it's a new system or if it's a very large program, we always recommend that you turn it into Miami-Dade. So they approve the test plan. So then when you turn in the reports later, it kind of maybe goes faster, right? So we always recommend a test plan. We recommend you using one of our labs in North America to do these tests. We're all Miami-Dade approved. You can do the testing with us. We'll get you the reports. Hopefully 2 to 3 weeks after that. Reports are always fun to get them done in time. We got to make sure and have the right drawings and things that go with it.
Right.
And then after you test it, you have to hire a professional engineering firm to turn in that report package with your approval drawings to Miami-Dade. In the past, we didn't offer those services. Now we do offer those services, so we can hold your hand and do the engineering and submittal package process for you. We turn that into Miami-Dade. You also have to pay Miami-Dade or the state of Florida, or whoever you're getting approval from. You have to pay them an approval fee, and then you get your approval. But the thing is you got to plan it properly. It is going to take time. It is going to take money, and you also want to make sure you have a good product and you design it and install it properly. You want to make sure it works. You don't want to waste all this money and then have things fail because you didn't prepare properly.
Right, right. And if you have a product line that's pretty extensive and it kind of maybe goes into that plan that you talked about, and you might have 6, 7, 8 different configurations, I'm assuming you'll work with the companies to say, hey, if you get these particular configurations approved, the West can qualify either through rational analysis or, I mean, is that how it works? Would that be a,
Yeah, Shawn, I said earlier about how things were simple back in the day when you just tested one glass type for one window and a certain design pressure. So you do 3 units, impact cycling, 1 unit air water structural, you're done, right? But nowadays, through the years, you have all those competing glass companies, you have all the competing silicone companies, you have all the competing hardware companies. You want all these amazing size and configurations and things that architects and people want to spend money for. So it's not that simple anymore. So you do have to look at everything somebody wants, that wish list, and create a test plan that's going to cover the most, right? You can combine certain things to be tested at the same time. And then once you have all that testing, there is engineering you can do for smaller units, for mold units, for different steel reinforcement and stuff like that. Some places don't allow it, some places do, but our engineering department can help you with that. Rational analysis is engineering is allowed. Another example for that is bomb blast testing. You know, we do full scale arena bomb blast testing and shock tube testing, but there's also, you don't have to do that all the time. That field has moved more and more towards rational analysis. So
I guess that's similar to doing like wind tunnel testing, right? For the pressures and stuff like that, right?
yeah, that too. Another thing for people that want that is for acoustics. You know,
Oh yeah,
there's more and more companies want some type of rational way to do acoustics instead of testing. It's just tough,
yeah.
tough.
For companies that are already participating in the hurricane market, what challenges can they expect in the future? In other words, they already have their product lines, but I suppose they got to continue to keep them updated, right? Every 3 to 5 years. Is that
Yeah,
how it works?
once you test, for example, like Miami-Dade, you get an approval, it lasts 5 years. You can renew that approval and it lasts another 5 years. Then after 10 years, since the report is older than I think 8 years, you have to maybe do one representative test to make sure that you're doing the same thing. Then you can get an approval again. I think what people just got to make sure is that their quality control program for everything they do works, and that they still make what they tested and it's built properly. You don't want to get there's companies out in the past for certain types of products that changed thicknesses on different things, and those things just started to fail. And it's because they did that without letting anybody know. That's quality control,
Right.
right? We don't want to let things like that happen. I think people just need to stay up with the times. I said earlier that not a lot has changed in regards to testing, but over the years, after hurricanes, and there's been code updates, and ASC 7 has been updated for wind load design, so some of the pressures, some of the maps have changed. So you got to make sure and you're on top of that to know, hey, is my product that was tested for this pressure, is that going to still be good in this market when everybody else is approved for a higher pressure? So you gotta stay in it to make sure that you're ahead of the curve.
So if you have a product that's been approved and it's coming up for renewal, or even during the course of that approval, let's say you want to change the hardware, you got a new supplier, and how does that work? What does the manufacturer have to do with that?
You can update that approval. Miami-Dade has a fee. Of course, we'll have a fee if we're helping you do this, but you can update that approval at any time
Do they have to test it
through the
or no?
yeah, if it's something, if you want to add an alternate glass option or an alternate piece of a new hardware type or a new silicone type, yes, you would have to test it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Jose, this has been really really great talking to you and getting some perspective here. Is there anything that I didn't ask you you think that might be valuable to our audience?
I think I'll just repeat it. It's time. It's gonna take time. You you don't want to wait. I've had clients in the past come talk to us for testing when they're already installing. I'm not going to say who, I'm not going to say where, I'm not going to say anything like that. But you want to do this in advance. You want to make sure you're covered and approved before you sell anything. So just be ready. It's going to take time, and there's companies like ours that can help you get through that process. So
That's great. Good words of wisdom there.
yeah,
Great. Well, Jose, I do appreciate it. For our audience to learn more about Intertek Building and Construction Products Division and services related to the hurricane market, we'll have a number below and a website address so you can get more information. You can connect with Jose and his team. And Jose, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
always a pleasure, Shawn.